The Supreme Court has ruled to uphold Biden-era regulations on unregistered firearms made with at-home kits known as ghost guns. The 2022 rule subjects ghost guns to the same requirements as commercially available firearms. Those requirements include ensuring the gun makers and sellers are licensed to sell the kits, that serial numbers are on the components, and that background checks are conducted for potential buyers. The justices ruled 7-2 to keep the regulations, citing against gun rights groups who argued the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives overstepped its authority in expanding the policy to apply to ghost gun parts. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford joins us now. Jan, what were the main arguments, first of all, before we get to the opinion from these gun rights groups against these regulations?
Well, they basically said that the Gun Control Act regulates firearms, and that if you've got a kit that you got to put all these pieces together to make a gun, that's not a firearm. And they argued, like you said, that the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco Firearms was overstepping its authority when it was trying to shoehorn this regulation and into a pre-existing law, that if anyone wanted to regulate these gun kits, it had to be done by Congress, not the ATF, and the courts should see it that way. But of course, they lost pretty commandingly today. What
did Justice Gorsuch write in his opinion, and was this a surprising outcome given the court's conservative leaning?
I didn't think it was a surprise, Lindsay, based on some of their questions and arguments, and they've obviously kind of allowed gun control regulations in other cases in the past. He just basically traced kind of this explosion in the availability of these gun kits and how police departments are dealing with this increase in crime as a result. And then he kind of went through some specific examples of how easy they are to make a gun out of them, and why they should be considered firearms. And he gave kind of real-world examples of gun kits you could buy. And then he said it's like when you go to IKEA. He literally said this. It's like when you go to IKEA and you buy a table. You call that a table, even though when you get home you got to put the legs on it and put it together. Same thing with these firearm kits. They're still guns.
Interesting analogy there, Jan. The court heard arguments Wednesday.
Well, I think it's easier, I think, to put together the guns in some cases than stuff you get at IKEA. But moving on.
Probably, I can't do either. Shifting to another case, Wednesday the court heard arguments regarding the $8 billion the federal government spends every year to subsidize phone and internet services. So think schools, libraries, rural areas. It's being challenged as an unconstitutional tax. What should we know here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a conservative advocacy group is challenging something that's been around for 30 years, where you basically have a fund that was created so that people in rural areas and schools and libraries can have access to phone and internet service, and it can be affordable for them. The telecom companies have to kick in a certain amount, or they add some of it to our phone bills, and Congress believed that that was really important so that people could access this kind of service. And the justices today, I think, liberal on both sides, agreed tens and tens of millions of people have benefited from this service. So the idea that this fund is unconstitutional, that Congress has somehow illegally delegated its authority to the people that are administering this fund, I don't think that that's going to go anywhere. I think that this is probably going to stay in place as something that people recognize is important. And that's why this was something the Biden administration is defending, but the Trump administration is also defending this fund, Lindsay.
Interesting. Jan Crawford, thank you so much.